Let's call this meeting to order.
Oh, my notes.
First item would be to see if there are any changes to the agenda. I guess, Margaret?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just
Mr. Chair, item number 2, the Public Works Standards Text Agreement, the ingress egress easements. There is a revised recommended motion. Those are the only changes.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to then agenda item number 1. She's already up there. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. This is agenda item number 1, LDCT-1705, Ordinance 1903, formerly known as 1803. This is the Land Development Code text amendments, county initiated, and we've been referring to these as process improvements. I did enter into the record additional public comment that we received today. And this is our second of 2 required public hearings. So today we do need a motion, and I'm going to turn it over to Pat Tajewski to talk about the changes since our last meeting.
Good evening. Pat Tajewski with SNME. I have a very short presentation. I don't know if I can drive. I'll do that. No, I'll do it. I was just, I got it. Okay. So I'm going to do a very brief overview. Now, if you feel like we need to have a little bit more detail of that overview, I have additional slides at the end that we can go through those later if you want to. We're going to talk about the changes that were requested by the board at the first hearing and the schedule. So the overview. So just to go a little bit back in time, because sometimes we get confused with what we have done versus what we're doing now. So back in 2015, we did a complete reorganization of the code, and that was finished, adopted, and that has been in place since then. In 2016, we came back and we looked at the urban corridors. We made changes to the comprehensive plan. We made changes to the land development code. Those were adopted and have been in place for 3 years now. This time around, what we're looking at is we're calling it process improvements. And the reason why we're calling it process improvements is because it deals with 3 main topics. The first one is special approval. This was a type of review that was established back in 1989 in the comprehensive plan for activities that didn't have specific standards in place. Over the years, standards have been adopted, and as part of this process, we're adopting new standards. So we completely eliminated the term special approval from the comprehensive plan last year, and now this year we're doing that in the land development code. In terms of plan development, again, this is a type of review. The county for many years had been relying a lot on plan development, and we are trying to eliminate that much reliance on it. We still have plan development. It's still a voluntary process, but we just didn't want to mandate that for every single type of development. And then the third item has to do with the fact that whenever you come in and you want to do any type of development, you have to make sure you're consistent with your future land use map and your zoning map. We have added a table to the land development code that explains which zoning categories are consistent with your future land use categories. So it's a lot easier for people to understand that relationship. In the process, we ended up adding some districts to make it easier to implement the comprehensive plan land use categories. The question has come up as to, are we increasing densities in the county? As part of the process that we went through, whenever you do affordable housing in the county, you can request a bonus density. We cleaned up that process, made it in a way that it's not going to make it more expensive for affordable housing to be developed in the county. So, and just like it was before, we're continuing to allow higher densities if somebody comes in with a truly affordable housing type project. And that is defined as 25% of your units have to be certified as affordable housing by the county. The other topic that has to do with densities is the commercial locational criteria, what we're calling now activity nodes. So for many years, the county has been allowing the placement of commercial nodes at major intersections. It has to go through a process. It's not like anybody can just go ahead and do it. They have to come to the board to get it approved. We're introducing the possibility of putting residential in those nodes. So you would do your commercial node, but then you would be allowed to have residential on the second floor or within the same site. So now we're allowing higher density residential within those nodes. Again, it's not something that people can just go ahead and do it. They would have to come in, get a rezoning, and at that point, the board can decide is that density acceptable or not. So in terms of where we have been with this process of getting to this point, we started back in December of 2016. We have been through workshops, work sessions, public hearings, and we are here today, as Lisa mentioned, with the second reading of the ordinance. At the first hearing, there were two questions that came up. The first one had to do with what has the county been approving in terms of setback for driveways. And Margaret checked, and they have been consistently approving 25 feet. So we feel comfortable with that measurement. The second question, it was more like a request that came up, was whenever somebody wants a waiver from connecting to the central sewer system, one of the criteria is that the proposed project cannot be within a flooding area. Instead of using that term, area known for flooding, we're specifying that it would be within the 100-year floodplain or the 100-year floodway as determined by the FEMA maps. So it's more specific language. And that's all I have at this point. If any questions come up, we can go through some of the slides that I have after this one.
Questions? Carol?
My light's on. It says I'm number 4. Now I'm okay, now it says 1. But anyway, to me, I have been looking forward to this. To me, this is a good day in Manatee County to get this far. We've cleaned up an outdated comp plan. We changed our comp plan. That's already been done last year. And now we made our land development code jive with our comp plan. And just to make sure everybody understands, your comp plan to me has always been, and we've all used it in government, it's like our Bible. Land development code has to jive with the comp plan. And over the years, it's slowly deteriorated, and things you find in your comp plan should have been in your land development code and vice versa. And thanks to Pat's expertise all these years, we're where we are today. I was involved in the first meeting in 2005 at the Convention Center. It was Manatee Community meeting that we had with all the elected officials, the public. We started there. I've been involved with One Day in 07 and 09, and then How Will We Grow. All of this has had public input. I'm here. I see some emails that they didn't know anything about it, and you saw the meetings we have. They've all been public. And I know some of those meetings at the Convention Center, there were at least 50 to 100 people there over the years. So we've had, and what you see today is actually the result of the public input. So I appreciate it. I did want you to address maybe a little bit slower and better for some of the citizens, because I'm hearing, I'm getting emails, and we're increasing our density, we're increasing our height, and we're talking about these activity nodes, and if you could give some examples to the citizens. And also, they also have to have transit near them and stuff like that. It's just not like you can go down the street and start one. I know there was a citizen that has been coming to our meetings, and when we showed that citizen how it wouldn't work, I guess that one was along Manatee Avenue, there are areas that you cannot do it because of our codes. But and this may not be perfect to start with. What we're going to do is we're going to have something, and then we can change it if it doesn't work. But at least we have something, that we have a clean comp plan now and a clean LDC. So I want to thank you, everybody, for all your work. It's been years coming, and we're at the point today where we can actually move forward. So thank you.
Do you want her to answer?
I want her to answer that's the biggest.
I'd like to take these
we all
one
got
at a
emails.
time and then move on to public
The
comment.
density and then the height.
If we can go back to the PowerPoint, I have some slides.
And I told Lisa I was going to ask you this when her and I had a meeting yesterday.
Okay, so when the commercial locational criteria concept was adopted back in '89, the idea was that where you have the subdivisions to the east of the county, you have a lot of residential, and where are all these people going to go for their commercial needs? So the county established a system that says if you're at the intersection of either arterials or collectors, you can have either a small node, a medium node, or a large node. And in order to do that, you would have to come and do a plan development. So if you are like in a residential 6, for example, it allows you a medium commercial node. So basically the developer would hire somebody, draw up the plans, and come to the board and say, can I have this? And then you would look at it, look at the criteria that it's in the comprehensive plan. It specifies the square footage and the height and the setbacks and all that. And then you would be able to have one of these nodes. What we're changing today, we're not changing the small, medium, large, we're keeping that. What we're changing is that now people, instead of having to go through plan development, they would go through a regular zoning district. So we have a table in the land development code that specifies which districts you would be able to apply for in order to get whether it's a small or medium or large. So for example, a small node would be, the zoning district that comes to mind is the neighborhood commercial small. So when you look in the zoning code, it already tells you, how large your lot has to be, how large the setbacks have to be, what the height is going to be. So all those standards are already in the code. So it's no longer a negotiable deal. It's more like meet the standards, and then we know what we're going to get. Let me see if I have. Okay, so this is the table that we have now in the zoning chapter that talks about these are your future land use categories on the left, and on the right, the districts that you see with the asterisk. Those are the districts that you could request in order to do one of these nodes. We have, in terms of height, I have another table here somewhere. Right now in the code, we address height in feet. So what we're doing is changing that to stories, because normally what happens if you say we allow 35 feet, people are going to try to squeeze as many floors as they can, ending up with apartments or retail stores that are not very comfortable to be in. So we're saying if we change, for example, if it said 45 in the code before, 45 feet, now we're saying it's 4 stories. If it said 35 feet, now it's 3 stories. So that's one change that we're proposing. And then for some districts, it does end up in a little bit more. Like, for example, in the GC, which is the General Commercial District, right now the code allows 35 feet. So we're proposing 4 stories. So that's a little bit, one more story. And then just for that district, it's general commercial, it's where you expect the activity. If somebody wants 2 more stories, they would have to go through the special permit process, where they go in front of a hearing officer, and they make sure that the hearing officer is going to have to make sure that it's not going to have an impact on the surrounding neighborhoods. In terms of we have 2 new districts. One of them is the RMF 9 and the mixed use district. For those 2, we establish heights of 4 stories. 4 stories for RMF 9 and 4 stories for MX, with the possibility of 6. So it's not that we're increasing heights. The changes are minimum. Something else that I want to show that is not in the code today, and we're proposing to include, so from now on everybody's going to be subject to this, is that if you are adjacent to single family, and let's say that the code says you can do 4 stories, well, anything above 3, which is what's allowed next door, is going to have to be set back even more. So we're now incorporating compatibility standards to make sure that none of these taller buildings are going to have an impact on the single family.
Mr. Chair, the picture that you showed about small, medium, and large, those pictures, and I know a lot of people here that are here today that would recognize if you look at the top one for small commercial, and remember, for some of these, you have to have transit nearby, and you have to be at a major thoroughfare, the intersection and stuff like that. But you see courtesy cleaners. I think that looks like the one that's on Manatee Avenue right there. So everybody can relate. That's what a small looks like. And then you see the CVS's also for small. So you can kind of see the type of business. It's not really changing. But I mean, I had so many people that were afraid that and I got many emails, and I'm sure we all did, that we were going to have our power taken away. We've had years of public input on what the public wanted, and there are still appeal processes, and also, if it's not what we want, we can have it come before us. There's a trigger, right?
If
That
somebody
certain projects
comes in
come?
and they request a rezoning to do a node, and you review it, and it's in a very sensitive area, and you think that it's going to be very controversial, you could say, in this case, we need you to go plan development.
So we still have control. Okay, thank you.
Betsy?
Yeah, I kept getting those emails too, so it is time to set the record straight. We've been in a meeting since 9, so I may sound a little crabby. I guess I don't have the patience I had at 9 a.m. So the idea that we are somehow losing our authority. I read all of Chapter 3, Authority, Procedures, Who Has Authority, and guess what? We're actually gaining one. Now we get to hear variances, which we didn't do before. So that's simply not true. I don't know who keeps spreading this rumor, but it's simply not true. We still have authority over all rezones, and the new districts that were created will require a rezone because they don't exist today. So if you're concerned that somebody next to you is going to try to get one of these new zoning districts, come to the hearing. You're going to get notice. You're going to tell us what's wrong with that. You're going to know what they're going to get because it's specified in the code, unlike a planned development, which you never know what you're going to get when you get a planned development. But you know what we get in planned development? We get nothing but a picture with a box that says development in it. It's worse. Planned development has less information than a straight zoning category. So going from planned development to a straight zoning category gives the public more information, not less information, more information. That's just the way it works. Read Chapter 3. You will see that I'm telling you the truth. Chapter 4, which is the zoning districts. I looked to see about all this increased density and intensity that people keep telling me about. I did see in the commercial district that you can get 4 stories. That was new. Before it was 35 feet, now it's 4 stories. But as she said, there's standards. Yes, we are codifying for affordable housing, but that's been there before. That standard to be able to go to the next highest zoning category. If I say something that's wrong, go ahead and correct me. No problem with that.
So very cool.
But the next highest zoning category, if you're doing affordable housing, been there, in the code, in the comp plan, been a standard. So I get that people are concerned that things are changing drastically. Anytime you rewrite a land development code. Heck, I was here in 1983 when the first code went into effect in 1981. You want to see people concerned? Property owners? I kind of got threatened at the front counter. You know, some of those folks didn't take kindly to us telling them what they could do with their property. So yeah, I get it. I get that there's concern. But we've been going at this for so long, talking about it for so long, trying to clarify what was meant when the comp plan was adopted in 1889 and those standards were put there as a placeholder. We're finally getting there a little bit. I wish we had less pages, but every time we talk about this, the pages grow. So I guess I'm going to shut up and hear from the public.
Okay, with that, we will open up public comment. Got a bunch of slips here. First one, Lori Carpenter.
Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Lori Carpenter. I have a 13-year-old daughter. I am here on behalf of myself, my daughter, and the low housing families. I thank you as well as the late Harvey Vandergraaf for letting us rise to bigger and better things, from living in our vehicle for 7 months when our apartment was taken from us.
Deep breath.
To having a rental efficiency and now trying to move on to home ownership. Again, we thank you for all that you have contributed to affordable housing, and hope you will continue to be there for us. On behalf of my daughter, myself, and the low housing families, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up would be Valerie Gilroy. I'm thinking.
Hello. Hey. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Is it okay while I'm speaking, I have like probably a 30-second note also from somebody who couldn't be here who sent me a message that they would like to send. It's a general contractor who's kind of working with us. Would I be able to read their statement also? I didn't know whether I needed to sign in for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aw, thank you. Okay. And this is Heidi. She's really shy, so she'll want to like read hers with me or Lori. So if you don't mind her being here. So you all know my name is Valerie Guillory. I'm from Trinity Without Borders. I would like to thank you all for your support of my agency's land conveyance from Manatee County for our affordable housing initiative. That was back in October. Commissioner Misty, you weren't here then, but I know you support affordable housing. Thank you for that. And Commissioner Bellamy, he's not here, but he actually told me that he used to walk by our property as a kid going to school every day, and he's like, rah, rah. Any affordable housing over there is great with him. So thank you all for that. I took it with all heart when Commissioner Betsy said to me at that time, "You're a developer now." And when a Manatee County Commissioner speaks, we all tend to listen. So thank you, Commissioner Betsy, for clarifying my identity. I am a developer now, and I will have that contractor's license by this time next year. But in the meantime, we're still moving forward with our property. I do want to say to you all that what I've come to notice after 25 years of addiction and homelessness, and then 15 years of being clean and living with a purpose, I've come to learn that the one thing I've seen that solves homelessness is home ownership. Literally owning your own spot means you don't get thrown out, like unless you go through a really serious process and all of that. I do want to say that when renting, you know, like Lori mentioned earlier, her apartment was taken out from under her and her daughter. Their unit was sold. When you're renting, properties are sold, rents go up. There's all kind of variables, and there's no equity for the resident, but yet they pay their rent every month, year after year, and they can still be out on the street. I do want to say that with our program offering homes, for under
Take another minute.
okay, for under $100,000 is our goal. Passing these amendments will allow a purposed developer like myself to carry out our affordable housing. Thank you for your reasonable, compassionate, and fiscal direction as a whole, and thank you for making even the lowest of incomes an opportunity available for the American dream. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll be next slide.
Gonna do
The next is Heidi.
Okay.
I think you've already been introduced.
Good evening, Commissioner. I can't talk.
Say hi, y'all.
Hi, y'all.
There you go.
My name is Heidi Elizabeth Hartwig. I live in Robinson Apartment, I am paying $725 at Robinson apartment. My disability is 711. I make $140 per week, every 2 weeks at McDonald's. My total income per month is $991 with $22 in food stamps. I have been looking for less expensive housing. Please support more affordable housing and options that will accept pets like cats and dogs. Thank you very much.
You did good.
Did great,
Well-
thank you.
See, we'd invite.
Next up is Glenn.
Here comes Debbie Downer.
Nice you could spend the day with us today, Glenn.
Now, Glenn, we don't want a Debbie Downer now. We've been real positive, so. We got everybody laughing.
All right, here we are again. For the record, Glenn Gibolina. This is a new meeting. What happened to the Pledge of Allegiance?
No, come on, we've done it 3 times already today. Keep going.
But it says on the agenda, Pledge of Allegiance is right there.
Yeah, we haven't
Okay,
left.
well, all right. Anyways,
Please.
affordable housing, yeah, we've got a great start. I see Denise here, great team on forward motion. You know, we're getting there. I want to address the impact fees. I think we need to go back to 100% for the impact fees. If we don't do that, I think we should think about assessing a special affordable housing fee, starting at $100 and maybe capping it at $5 for any house that's built above the affordable housing limit. And I think that's about $239, Denise, isn't it? Somewhere around there? A couple $100,000. I think anything above that, if a developer builds it, they should be taxed for an additional fee to put into the affordable housing fund, so we can go ahead and sponsor projects like Valerie's and the other ones that want to get out here and do that. So that's my model on that. We haven't talked about the tiny houses, although they're not built to Florida building codes. I still think there's an opportunity there. My God, we allow mobile home parks who aren't regulated by anybody except the Department of Transportation to make sure their trailers have brakes and their lights work. That's all those mobile homes are. So I think if the people wanted to take the risk and put tiny homes there, there should be opportunity and land for them to put them there. If they travel around the country in them, what's the difference? If they want to land on a place, I think there should be some land available to do that. So that's my spin on that. The other thing is vacant lots. I think we need to initiate a program for the citizens that, you know, the way we get surplus property now are through tax deeds and other different conveyances. I think if there was some type of program for a taxpayer that just wanted to leave Florida and he had a vacant lot and it was assessed at $10,000 or $15,000, that the county would go ahead and offset that like a 501c3 and put it into the surplus property division to allow small-time developers like Valerie and myself to make more use of that land. I just think that there's just not enough surplus property out there to do what we want to do. So the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units, great. And I told you before, we're going to change the name. They're not accessory dwelling units. They're affordable dwelling units. And I think that the developers need to step up to the plate and add them into their business plan and their model. Thank you. Stay the course.
Thank you, Glenn. Sandy Marshall's next.
Before I begin, Ernest Sandy Marshall, First Vice President of the Federation of Manatee County Commissioners, or County Commission, not Commissioners. I don't want that job. Is this the last meeting? We're not having one on April the 4th?
This is our second.
We got another one on April 4th?
Nope,
Oh, it's
This is
today.
it.
this is
Okay.
it.
Advertised.
Here's my slip for 5 people.
Are we doing that? That's land use. 5 people, 5 minutes, or 15, he
10
wants to
minutes.
speak for 15 minutes?
It's
Supposed to
up
be
the-
10 minutes, isn't it?
No, it's
For
actually
land
only
use.
land use per our procedures that
Yeah,
you're
we'll,
supposed to.
we'll allow you
A little
5
more.
minutes.
Yeah, we'll give you more, but not, well, yeah,
I thought this was a public hearing. If it's a public hearing, it's 10 minutes, as I understand.
Not according to our procedures.
Teachers, yeah.
No, that's not the procedures?
they'll look it up, but right now 5, and then we'll find out. Or we'll let you, if you can finish.
For the record, I want to incorporate by reference letters from the Federation that date back to 5/26/16, 8/30/16, and see, looks like 1/4/16. Those letters were written by the Federation and sent to the board. They should be in the record. If you don't have them, let me know, and I can furnish copies at a later date. I think the comments by Commissioner Whitmore at the beginning were very appropriate, and I'm glad to hear that it's being looked at carefully to make sure that we cover the problems that have been exposed by speakers such as myself and others that we think need to be corrected or improved upon, so that we get plenty of notice into the hands of the public so something doesn't happen next to them where they live that would be contrary to their health, welfare, and safety. I assume that there has not been anything done to take out the police bars. Is that right, Mrs. Schwenk?
Well, I'm not really answering questions.
Oh, okay.
But I want to take your time. Just-
All right. The bottom line is that I was provided information that that was in the code. If it's in the code, that will help protect the public, but it'll also help protect you to turn down something that doesn't look like it should be approved. So please take advantage of that. The things that I think are important, if I understand correctly, Commissioner Whitmore stated that there's a trigger mechanism that if you don't like something the way it looks or smells, you can have it brought before you and ask that it have a public hearing or have public input. And that's great. That's what the people want. The people I talk to and they contact us, that's what they're saying. On the affordable housing issue, I think that's great, and I think we need it. I went to work in the streets when I was 9 years old because we were so poor and was on welfare until I was 16 in one of the biggest cities in this country. So I know what these people are talking about. Been there, done it. And so it's good. But we got to be careful now how we do this. Number one, to protect them and also the rest of the citizens from the standpoint of where and how these developments are put in. It has to be done right. The other thing is this, language. Now, there was talk that Commissioner Burnett said that we got plenty of protection in here for the public to have notice and that there is protection against waivers. I would submit to you, after looking at what's been provided to me at the last meeting, there is still a great deal of latitude that's being left to discretion that can be abused. It needs to be tightened up. It's not there, folks. You're going to invite trouble from the public when they don't like what you're doing up here, and that's the last thing I want to see happen. That's the last thing the public wants to do. But if you're going to interfere with their homes and they don't know about it and they don't find out about it until it's too late, that's not the way to do this. So it's like Commissioner Baugh said at the last meeting, you all represent the people. People want notice. And if you can put any waivers and things of that kind in the notice that's being published, you need to do that. Also, limit the discretion. Limit the discretion and put some protective language in this code that will allow the staff to have the ability to make decisions, but tighten it up to make sure that it is in accordance with the best interest of the public and does not cause adverse effects, and it's consistent with the health, welfare, and safety of the public. If you do that, you're going to cut through all the problems on density, all this business about general commercial. There's some latitudes in there that can go up and down and around. All these things can be addressed if you be sure that we don't turn over the discretion to staff to the point that they get themselves in trouble or get you in trouble or get the commission or public in trouble because there's not enough notice so that they can come in here like these ladies and these folks did today and say what they need to say. So this is a very important point, and I'm not going to go through anything I've already talked to you about. You've already heard a lot of things from the public. You've heard a lot of things from the Federation and people that we represent and also people from our group. And so you're tired. It's a long day. And I do want to commend you for doing what you did. You gave a chance to people to come in here at 5 o'clock and say what they need to say. I know it's not easy. That's why I said I wouldn't want your job after sitting up there and having to go through what you did today. But it's important that you do what you're doing so that we do have a chance to come in and say what's needed. So the code, this land development code, good idea, needed, but make sure it's tight enough to protect the people. And if you don't do that, all you're going to do is invite lawsuits, and that's the last thing that should happen.
Actually, Sandy, I was corrected. You are entitled to another 5 minutes if you'd like to.
Great. Okay, I can take a break.
Although I question the legality of your slip, but that's, we don't need to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was right.
You got 5 minutes.
I got eraser on my pencil anymore, folks.
Of course, there's a question that the fact that you crossed off the date and put another date in, so, but we won't go there.
Well, you know.
Take your 5 minutes, Sandy.
I don't want to belabor it. I think that it's important that you do receive credit for taking the time and effort to do what you're doing. It's not easy. You don't know all the answers. I don't know all the answers. I know answers to things that I know about, and things I don't know about, I got to defer to people like this lady, good-looking lady sitting over here. Now, the bottom line to it, again, watch these waivers, watch these discretions. Think about that from the standpoint of how to control that. And again, I'm glad that Commissioner Whitmer pointed this out. I have told people that this is not the end of the world if it gets passed and we don't like some of it. We can come back at a later date and bring some proposals to you and say, look, this is what you approved, this is what needs to be done, and this is why. And I would hope that you'd be open to that and would not say, okay, no, we're not going to do that because we're going to upset some other people in the county that want it left the way it is. The other people in the county is about 400,000 people, and they want you to do it right. And we're here to try to help you, and that's what I've done for all the years I've been with the Federation as well as a member of this community. And I'm here to help you. The Federation's here to help you. People sitting out here are here to help you. We want to do it right. We got a great county. We don't want to turn it into Miami or Fort Lauderdale. It's a low-profile community. That's why we live here. If it changes, I'm leaving, going back to Detroit.
Wouldn't like Detroit.
Thank you, Sandy.
Right now, that's where I'm
Next
from.
up is Dan Young. Okay.
Sir.
Next is Catherine Edwards.
Hi, thanks. There have been some building height restrictions that are being modified in the LDC, and I understand building height restrictions need to change to accommodate affordable housing and for other reasons. My concern in the proposed changes are for 402.7 PDR, Plan Development Residential. The original wording stated, building height, the maximum height in the PDR district is 3 stories. Telecommunications towers shall not exceed a maximum height of 150 feet. That's pretty clear. But in the changes that are proposed, the following is going to be added. Request to increase height above 3 stories may be approved by the board. The operative word there is may. And that's all well and good. But the second part of that sentence, lawyers are so sly, says, and shall comply with the requirements, shall is a big word, with the requirements of Section 401.5A if the development is adjacent or directly across the street from a single-family residential zoning district, and Section 401.5B1 through 5 if adjacent to other uses. So the end result is that the project may not qualify for a maximum height above 35 stories. It may qualify for a height above 3 stories, 35 feet, if the request is submitted and it is adjacent to single-family residential zoning districts. That's the problem. If that shall comply with the requirements, or change to may comply with the requirements, then everything's hunky-dory if everybody feels like a codification is necessary. But the original building height restriction was very plain-spoken and very straightforward. The maximum height in the PDR district is 3 stories. Telecommunications towers shall not exceed a maximum height of 150 feet. Now, in addition to that, if the FEMA flood zone is winds up being 5 feet off the ground, then the building height is from that FEMA elevation, not from the ground elevation. So building heights can already be 45 or 50 feet or whatever the FEMA is, plus the 35. So please change that wording before approving this. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next is Tamara Rogers. Tamara. There's no L.
Tamara.
Oh, okay. You must know her.
Hello, County Commissioners. Thank you for taking time to hear public comments. I am here as a potential homeowner of Trinity Without Borders for affordable housing. It is something that is so desperately needed here. As a working professional, employee of State College of Florida, the fact that I cannot afford a home at the market rate speaks volumes. And I'm speaking for teachers, for police officers, for firefighters, everybody that is working a 40-hour-a-week job and cannot even afford to live in a rental property in Manatee County, much less buy a home. I hear the people talk about safety, and that really bothers me, because if you equate affordable housing with unsafe people, how are we ever going to get past that bias? That I think that is a big black cloud over affordable housing. If you're concerned for their safety, if they put affordable housing next to your single-family home. And so I'm standing here, I am a college-educated, professional woman, and I deserve a home just like everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Tamara.
That concludes the cards I have. Is there anybody else in the public? If so, please come up and line up, and I think Mike got to the podium first. You were quick.
Be brief. Michael Gallen, Manatee Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for taking this in for a landing. It's been a long time coming. This is a really cool moment. And these speakers that have been here today, the residents speaking about affordable housing, I mean, they're demonstrating that you're on the right track and how important this is. And I commend them for being here, such powerful words and putting faces to the needs of the community. And just quickly on this, we urge you to support, the Chamber continues to support your efforts, providing more streamlined, predictable development process, creates less expensive process, and hopefully creates redevelopment opportunities, opportunities for revitalization, opportunities for mixed-use development at the activity nodes designated, and housing solutions. So with that, we urge your support, and thank you for bringing in for a landing today.
Thank you, Mike.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Jeff Ryan. I'm a local young person. I just wanted to come and speak on in support of all the changes that were discussed today. It's sorely needed in the county, and it's sorely needed in the community. I know that when I came down here with my young family, we really struggled with trying to find attainable housing for us. And I think that the policies that you're pursuing and the changes are just something that's it's a tremendous step in the right direction. And I just want to just lend my support to making the right call. I know it can be hard sometimes when you go to meetings and people are saying a lot of things are sometimes based on fear, and fear is an understandable thing. But I think it's important that we not let fear dominate our thoughts and think about what's best, and most importantly, what's best for our community long term. And I just want to say thank you, and I hope you all support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to come down and speak? Seeing nobody at this point, we will close public comment. And the first on the board up here is Commissioner Whitmore.
Just a few comments on the public comment that was made. Glenn, again, has said we need to raise our impact fees. And I just have to clarify this because a lot of people watch this on television or maybe here that don't know the correct answer. Manatee County has the highest impact fees on the west coast of Florida, except at 90%, not 100%, but at 90%, except for Charlotte County and an east portion of Pasco County. When this has been brought up to us before, we actually had staff research this, and we have that information. So I'm going to try to find it for how can I forget your name, Glenn, and I'll get him those facts. That's the facts. Also, Robbins Apartments, and I'm hearing about the impact fees again, right? They're owed Manatee County $500,000 in impact fees. Now we're working with them through our affordable housing to figure out a way, but that is what you're looking at too. You can't say that we're not charging enough. Actually, look at Robbins Apartments, and I know you can relate to that. That's why I brought that up. Discretion to be abused by our staff. I've been here 12 years now, and we have nothing but employees that are very well knowledgeable, trained, professional, and have no reason to do anything against our county to make it fail. If there are issues in the past, we'll address it, and probably that person wouldn't be here anymore after that. But I do rely on our staff, and I trust our staff to follow the laws and the ordinances and the policies that we set. So the discretion there isn't. They are going to be able to follow the rules, and if the applicant brings a project that's within our rules that we pass, then why are we micromanaging? And that's been the problem in our LDC for years. So I'm all in support of that. And the 35 feet, Catherine's totally correct. On the island, the law is 35 feet from the center of the street. Well, if you go along the Gulf, those buildings aren't 35 feet. And it's because of the FEMA and the elevations, and then they can build on top of that. So you're absolutely right, but that's just the way it is everywhere in Manatee County. So anyway, I wanted to clear the impact fees because we hear that all the time. And I think we need to start spreading the facts and not just keep reading what social media says, because that's not true. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Servia.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone who came out to speak today and took the time to do that. And I just want to reiterate, what we've kind of heard, which is it is the goal of this board and the staff to protect the health, safety, welfare. So you can be sure of that. And I'm excited about the adoption of these changes. Is it perfect? I'm sure we're going to find some problem with it. It's a dynamic document, and that's how all land development codes are. We learn more, we do more, things change, we change the rules. It's constantly evolving, but the evolution of this document excites me because I have worked with it for 30 years. I've worked with it as a planner at Manatee County and as a private consultant and now as a commissioner. And so I've been around for the character and compatibility study and the one bay with the Legos and how will we grow and the ULI, you know, when they came in, Urban Land Institute came in and said you should be doing this, and the population forecast that we look at all the time, every year and more than every year. So, I mean, I just want the public to know that there's a lot of attention that is paid to this. Nothing is done without a lot of thought and consideration. I started my day this morning at 7:30 in the morning with somebody who had an idea, a new idea about affordable housing. And so I want you to know that that's out there. You know, people are really thinking now about how can we house people, and it's so exciting to me. And the market is going to run with this. You're going to see things we haven't seen before, and it's going to allow people to have housing, and that's exciting. My stepdad is 91 years old, and I recently moved him into Robbins Apartments. There was no other housing for him. Mm-hmm. And he is there, and so I'm there a lot. And I've met a veteran there who can't afford anywhere else to live. And I have seen the 48 children who live there, 48 kids, lots of kids there, lots of single moms, lots of people in need of housing. So I'm really excited that we're making a shift that's going to really help people, and that's what we're supposed to do, right? Regarding Catherine Edwards' comments about the PDR, I just want to say this, that, you know, there's language in there that's conflicting, and that's because it's a 30-year-old document that we've amended so many times, and that's what happens when we do that. 35 feet in height is really not the limitation there, because everybody goes through PDR and says, here's how we're going to go taller than 35 feet and why it's appropriate. So it's a little bit disingenuous to understand it as it's a limitation of 35 feet. I just wanted to say that for the record, and I know I've heard Betsy say that before too. And so with that, I'd like to ask staff before we move on this, if you could please just go over the building height again and explain, you know, the new regulations that we are considering provide a little more certainty in what the rules are. You know, how do we protect those adjacent single-family homes? So I would like to hear that again when the time's appropriate.
Okay, can we, hold on, are you done,
Yeah.
Misty?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Betsy?
Thank you, and I got you beat, 35 years. 35 years I've been working on zoning in Manatee County. I started here in 1983, like I said, on the 1981 code. I was here in 1989 when the comp plan was adopted, the new 1991 code. I lived through it. The height thing was not a building height restriction till 2004 because there was an application pending. Mm-hmm. There was no building height limitation till 2004 when there was an application pending that showed height along Sarasota Bay at 4 or 5 stories. And in almost a little bit more than a month, the county commission added a restriction. But I'm going to read to you what the current code said because Catherine did a trick that attorneys do. She read only part of it. I'm going to read the whole thing to you because I looked it up while I was sitting here. Because it's my belief that the restrictions that we put in place are more restrictive than what we have in the current code, not less. It says the maximum height in the PDR district is 35 feet. Telecommunication towers shall not exceed a maximum height of 150 feet. That is the first paragraph. Then it goes on to say requests to increase height above 35 feet may be approved by the Board of County Commissioners after review of the nature of surrounding uses and criteria listed before. The board shall make a determination that the proposed development is compatible with the surrounding area and will not create any external impacts that would adversely affect surrounding development, existing proposed waterfront vistas or entranceways. An applicant requesting an increase in building height over 35 feet shall provide at the time of public hearing conceptual architectural drawings, elevations, and plan views showing the building, their relationship, and the property. Kinda loose language. What's being proposed says what you have to do if you are proposing a building over 35 feet if you're next to a single-family residence. In my mind, that's more restrictive than this language that allows the board. And granted, I've been in this business for a long time. We have a lot of buildings that have been approved over 35 feet in the PDR district. So that's just a fact. So you got to go sometimes with the facts. So I think that's good stuff. I think the other thing, just a couple things, the Res 9, we had a little discussion this morning about whether or not you could have a Res 9 in a Res 3, and you can't. I read the code, you can't. So I want to clarify that. We have those lists of uses. You got to have a Res 9 to have an RSF 9. So I want to clarify that, at least in the chart that I'm looking at, it says that, right? Am I correct? Thank you. The other thing I want to address is the folks that came here for affordable housing. God bless you. You all are extremely brave. I know how hard this is for you. And we know how popular Robbins Apartments is because there is such a huge need for that. I really enjoyed meeting with Harvey's son, older son, I never remember his name, Mark, thank you. Yeah. Talking to me about the impact fee issue. And I gave him some direction. I said, look, it doesn't make any sense for us to be charging school impact fees for homeless students that now have a home.
Yeah.
There's no impact. Go talk to the school board. See what they can do. I've talked to our staff. You know, we got to get a handle on what impact fees are for. They're for new residential development that causes impacts. We're housing homeless people here that are already living in their cars. I would guess their impact might be a little bit higher on the roads than if they have a home, that maybe they could walk to a store if they had a home and didn't have to live in a car. So we need to get realistic. To me, we got to talk about some of those issues. We know we're restricted by the law when it comes to impact fee. Impact fee law is very strict, but we've got to think, you know, outside of the car, I'm going to say, not outside of the box. Maybe people live in boxes too. We've got to think about ways to solve this issue. And I think we recognize it. That's why we've tried to write our code and our land development, our comp plan and our land development code to be able to accomplish some of these things. But after talking with Valerie, I see how difficult it is. $725 a month. That's hard for some people. You know, but we know that includes utilities and includes some other things. We're going to have to figure out how to work with that. But believe me, we're going to continue to work on this. You know, Valerie's got, you know, a lot of ideas. I gave her some information that I had that I thought was really good. But I'm really glad that you all came here for your support on that. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. I just really have one comment, and that's to the point that, you know, we up here take a lot of criticism for not getting public input a lot of the time. And it's something that, you know, I'm sure we could always do better at. But when I look at this LDC, which I haven't been here but a couple of years, and I look and I see we've held 18 meetings, I counted, over this time that have all been open to the public to get their input. And we've listened to that input, and our staff has, in putting this document together. And I think it's a real testament to the board, you know, that started this, 4 years ago, and that we did continue to let people come in and make suggestions. And I think somebody said before me, it's not going to be perfect. We know that. But, you know, we have to have the flexibility, and we have to get to the end of the game here at some point. So I think it's exciting that we now are here. You know, it's not cast in concrete. You know, we can always adjust it down the road if we have to, but now we have a new document finally that I think is enforceable and gives everybody a good direction on how to get different zoning issues done, heights, setbacks, things of that sort. So with that, I'll just, I think Misty's still looking for the answer to your question from Pat,
it's actually Carol, I think.
No, it was
Oh,
me.
was it Carol?
No, it was Misty. I
just think for the benefit of the public, and everyone, just one more time, please explain how the height is going to be evaluated.
But do it, because you did it again, but do it, I hate to say it, but slower.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
If we can go back to the PowerPoint, we'll show the slide. Thank you.
I was reading the current land development codes.
And Pat, thank you for being with us for 4 years doing this.
Okay, so we have these tables in Chapter 4, and these are just little snippets from those tables. So we have the agricultural and single-family districts on the top, duplex multifamily districts, and then office commercial districts, and the bottom ones are industrial, extraction, and institutional. So you can see, when you see in the draft, it's the same thing. It was 35 feet, for example, in A. We changed that to 2 stories. Same thing across all the residential districts. For the new residential single-family 9 district, we're proposing 2 stories. When you go to the duplex and multifamily, in that case, we went from 35 feet to 3 stories, which it's the equivalent. For residential multifamily 6, we went from 35 feet to 4 stories, so that's adding a little bit there. Same for residential multifamily 9, that's a new one. We're proposing 4 stories. And the new multifamily districts, the 12 and the 16, we're proposing 6 for those. The idea is to do multifamily. It's the only way you can put those many units. And sorry, the RMF 9 is existing. It's not new. That was changing from 35 to 4. For office, going from 35 to 3. Commercial districts going from 35 to 3 stories, except for general commercial, where we're going from 35 feet to 4 stories. And if somebody wants to do 2 more stories, they have to go to the hearing officer to demonstrate that they're not going to have an impact in the neighborhood. The new mixed-use district will have the same situation, 4, with the possibility of asking up to 6. For RVP, we're not changing that because it's recreational vehicles. For industrial, we're going from 45 feet to 4, but there is a footnote, and that is an existing footnote that says that you can ask for more. And we're not changing that we're keeping that same footnote. And for the other industrial district, HM, same thing from 55 to 5, and the other one is unchanged. Now, for the example of the mixed use or the general commercial, where you're going to have 4 stories with the possibility of going up to 6, or even the planned development district that was mentioned, where it says if you're going to do more than 3 stories, you have to go to this other section in the code, which is this one. This is a summary of that section. It says that if you're going to have more than 3 stories, from the 4th story and above, you're going to have to step back 10 feet for every story that you put in. So if you're going to have 6 stories, your top 3 stories are going to have to be set back. You can do the wedding cake option, which is, step each floor, or you can set back the entire building, or you can set back the top 3 stories. There are 3 different ways of doing it, but the idea is to have those top floors moved away from the single-family home. And I think something else that I need to mention, that when we did the urban corridors back in 2016, those have different heights. So in that table, it's a separate table. We're not changing those. So the idea is that if you're on 41 Cortez, some of those urban corridors, you can do 5 stories in some of those commercial areas with the possibility of going to 7. But we're not changing that at this point. That's why we didn't bring it up.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Whitmore.
And just to clarify, and we found this throughout the years when we've been working on this, you saw there's only one area where you're going to get a 7, then you just kind of mentioned the others where they're along our major corridors. We've had a 7-story apartment complex on 26th Street between Manatee and Cortez Road since the 80s. I finally one day went and counted it and brought it to staff's attention. It's been there forever, so I think it's been there since the 80s, and I've never, ever, ever had a complaint. But, Mr. Chair, I'd like to, if it's okay, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to, based upon the staff report, evidence presented, comments made at the public hearing, and finding the request to be consistent with Manatee County Comprehensive Plan in accordance with Section 341 of the Land Development Code, I move to adopt Ordinance 1903, amending the Manatee County Land Development Code as recommended by staff.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Whitmore, seconded by Commissioner Servia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0.
So we're done?
Didn't think I'd ever say that. 4.
We do, the
Agenda
Public
item
Works?
2,
The Public Works thing?
text amendment.
Um,
Always had to slip another one in.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move are we going, is staff giving us a presentation? It was only like one thing. I mean, but maybe staff could give us a, yeah, you want to give us a briefing on it? I'll move to approve the Public Works Standards text amendment to ingress and egress easements, revised recommended motion.
Mr. Chair.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and fellow commissioners. Sorry about that. Mr. Chair and fellow commissioners, just briefly, this amendment to the county standards is with respect to a certain time frame as far as subdivision plats. It's for subdivisions that predate October 29th of 1926, and it's predominantly with regards to the Waterbury, Grapefruit, and Palmetto Park subdivisions with respect to the splitting of 10-acre tracts into 2 individual 5-acre tracts and utilizing access by easement. In addition, this particular amendment to the county standards is to be in compliance and consistent with the adoption and the recent adoption of the code amendments that just took place with respect to replat definition.
We have a motion and a second.
Motion and a second. We'll now open this up for public. Anybody from the public wish to come down and talk about it?
At 6:05 after 12 hours.
Seeing nobody, we'll close public comment. We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carries 4-0.
Are we
And
going
any commissioner comments?
No way, Jose.
Mr. Barnott, any comments? Ms. Shank?
Thank you for your support.
No
Thank you
comments.
for all your work.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Right.
thank you.
We're adjourned.
Took forever.
Oh.
Pat, are you done with us now?
No.